And the challenge, I think, is that actually for a lot of these people, they might be missing out on opportunities that they actually do have given to them by businesses to make their money last longer for them for their futures, but also actually make their money work harder for them in the present. I actually heard a story from somebody recently that said to me, I would love to have a session on how to read my payslip because I've recently found out that I've missed out on childcare benefits because I didn't understand what my total income was and what I needed to report in order to give me those childcare benefits.
Wow, okay. Hey guys, welcome to the Proud Talk. Today I am joined by Carla, the founder of Wealthbrite.
Hi Tracy, thanks for having me on.
You are very welcome. I honestly cannot wait for this conversation, guys, because we are talking about something which affects all of us, and that's money and finance. So I was really intrigued and excited to speak to Carla today because inflation is at an all-time high. And do you know what? I don't think that many of us admit actually what we don't know about money. So I'm super happy to have you here today.
Yeah, no, it's great. And just like you said, I mean, this is something that affects everyone.
Yes.
Whether we have a lot of it or we feel like we don't have a lot of it, money is a topic that we all talk about.
Yeah.
And yet, as you said, unfortunately, there's not a lot that's done in our school systems to teach people about how to manage money. And that's why Wealthbrite exists. We want to plug that gap and help people learn about how to make their money work harder for them.
Perfect. So in terms of who Wealthbrite work with, can you give us a bit of background on that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we're working with businesses and actually educational institutions. So the idea is to say to those organizations, well, look, you have people coming into your business place of work or place of education who are going through a major transition in their lives. So if you take the example of a new grad, you know, this is somebody who is just out of university or leaving school, they've started their first proper job. They're having to manage what does the world of work look like, full stop.
And uni debt.
Uni debt, school fees, student loans, you know, all the rest of it. Like, and they are finding themselves in a situation where maybe for the first time they are getting a regular income. But they're also going to be faced with an introduction to corporate benefits. That might be pensions, that might be flexible gym membership, it might be, you know, pick and choose a number of different other benefits that exist out there. Now, the question for a lot of people will be, well, they probably won't even think about it. They'll probably just tick whatever box that's presented to them. That was certainly my experience. I was given sort of a lot of these lovely benefits, didn't really understand how they worked. And the challenge, I think, is that actually for a lot of these people, they might be missing out on opportunities that they actually do have given to them by businesses to make their money last longer for them for their futures, but also actually make their money work harder for them in the present.
Okay. And it's interesting that you say, I was talking to someone yesterday and I asked them, do they understand what is on their wage slip? And they said, no, actually, I don't understand that. So is that something that's quite common?
Absolutely. I've heard that story from so many people. And we're not just talking about the graduates who are new in role. We're talking about people who have been in their jobs for, you know, decades at work. I actually heard a story from somebody recently that said to me, I would love to have a session on how to read my payslip because I've recently found out that I've missed out on childcare benefits because I didn't understand what my total income was and what I needed to report in order to give me those childcare benefits.
Wow, okay.
And that, you know, that is a major problem because especially at the minute, people are under enormous financial pressure.
Absolutely.
And if you have an opportunity or you're missing out on opportunities to either get benefits or reliefs that you're entitled to because you do not understand how your pay is calculated and how to read your payslip, I mean, that could be life-changing for some people.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about what you're doing, and I think especially coming from the corporate world, is that I think companies now need to make themselves accountable for this education. You know, it affects mental health a lot. And I think, you know, the two combined absolutely make sense. So what's your take on I suppose the corporate world doing this now? Are they going, yeah, I'm sort of in, or are they still thinking it's not on them?
So I think it's evolving, and it's evolving quite rapidly. So I guess to touch on one of your points you made, so mental health and financial well-being as a sort of driver of mental health. I mean, it is well documented that money worries are the number one cause of stress and anxiety in working adults in the UK. So if we know that dealing with personal financial issues is an underlying root cause of mental health problems that are faced by people in work, then I think actually businesses are pretty well established in their responses to mental health problems. What they are less established in is addressing that root cause.
Okay.
So what are they doing to talk about money at work? It's the vast majority of organisations that I'm talking to aren't doing an awful lot in the space to address that root underlying cause. But here's where there's some hope and where there's sort of brighter days ahead, I think, in terms of the business response to this issue. I think actually the mood has changed. There are lots of businesses who have adopted a financial well-being strategy. I know that from having talked to them. So they know this is a problem. They know this is an area that they want to support their people in. They maybe just haven't quite figured out what the expression of support looks like. I think it's also really telling that actually even just yesterday there was a report released by PwC on a global workforce survey. And actually there's some really positive conclusions coming out of these reports. And these are reports speaking to thousands of employees about what is important to them at work. So when I've talked to some business owners and they've said, I'm afraid to start the conversation about money. Because I don't think I have all the answers. I don't necessarily think I've got the expertise to deal with it. Or maybe I'm not ready to hear what my people have to say about money issues and money problems at work. Well, I think the good news for employers who might be in that position is to say, actually, what we're hearing from people is, number one, they're already having this conversation at work. They're talking to their peers, their colleagues, their friends. So, you know, this conversation is happening, and you are losing out on the positive effect of being engaged in that conversation by not actually listening and helping them have it in a positive, meaningful way. So I think, you know, there is a shift that's happening. There is a broader recognition of the positive impact of having financial well-being conversations at work, societal, political conversations at work, which this fundamentally is.
Yeah, definitely.
So I do think the mood is changing, which is great to see.
And I think even just going back to the point that you made around sort of, you know, someone not knowing that they could get an element of childcare based on understanding their wage slip in more detail. I mean, what that does is relieves one pressure for that mother, which makes her happier in the workplace, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, you know, as the pandemic has really shone a light on, who we are at work is, and you know, who we are at home. The two don't exist separately.
Correct.
So financial pressures, stresses, and on the positive side, financial relief feeds into how you behave and act at work. So, you know, there are, again, lots of statistics out there that will demonstrate the fact that, you know, how you feel about money directly impacts your ability to perform productively at work. I have to say, if statistics could change the world would be a very different place. So for me, it's about highlighting the stories of real people, like that person I spoke to who said, I didn't know about child benefit that was available to me for the first year of when my child was born, because I had no idea that I could make that claim and what the information was that I needed to put in to be able to get that benefit.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that needs to change.
But and I didn't know that. So when I had my child at like 38, I didn't know half of these things.
Yeah.
And, you know, just going back to that, you know, I remember as a group, we all earned really good money. But actually, a lot of us didn't really understand what to do with that to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
And that could have made a big difference to everyone. So going back to sort of the younger generation, where are they investing their money now? Or where are they seeing that, you know, it's not banks anymore? What is it that they're thinking, I'm going to get my money back more so in this area?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So we're sitting in London, and if you've taken a trip on the tube anytime recently, I have been really kind of overwhelmed by how many adverts there are at the minute now on the tube and in train stations, on bus stations, of invest your money here in this investment platform, put your money in these stocks, you know, figure out your pension with us, come and, you know, invest in this different asset class. Yeah. So I think what we're seeing is that there is a lot of noise in the system. What I'd say is that one of the benefits of the opening up of fintech has been to reduce the cost and access to lots of different investment options. So I think for a lot of young people, they're receiving this message and asking themselves, well, where can I put my money? Yeah. Cash in the bank, as you said, inflation is already at 9%.
It's highest pretty much, yeah.
Highest for 40 years. So, you know, I think young people are savvy. They know that sticking that money in a cash account, they're losing out. So they're looking for ways to make that money do more for them. Yeah. I suppose the dark side of the brightness that comes from the opening up of financial products is when there is, I guess, a gap in the consistency of education around how to use those products. Yeah. So one of the things I've observed is that when people are looking for advice or guidance on where to use their money or where to put their money, they're turning to non-traditional sources of information. And by that I mean social media.
TikTok, YouTube, you name it. I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there is a very strong and growing community of I guess financial influencers, right? And I know a lot of those people that are doing really good work to share their own stories about what they've learned about money so that other people can learn from them. But we live in an age of hyper levels of information and frankly, a lot of scams.
Yes.
You know, there's a campaign at the minute that's going on that's had some profile in the Financial Times recently called Meta Do Better. Because actually there are a huge number of fake accounts existing on social media.
So many.
Either copycats of true financial influencers or just fake full stop, which are enticing a lot of younger people, especially because they're the majority users of these platforms, to put their money into, you know, get rich quick schemes. Yeah. So young people are looking to invest their money. They're hearing a lot about the value of investments, what you can do. Maybe that's crypto, maybe that's shares. You know, I see a lot of stuff on social media about trying to beat the market. Yeah. But what hasn't quite caught up yet are the guardrails of education that can actually give people a really full understanding of the pros and cons in equal measure of some of the products that exist out there, and what to look out for, how to spot a scam. You know, when is something too good to be true? Also, the value of the lesson around diversification of investments. Actually, Claire Barrett, who's the money editor at the Financial Times, her most recent podcast is a story about a young guy who invested all of his cash savings and borrowed to invest in a single crypto asset, single coin that has plummeted in value. And the moral of that story is, I guess, the fact that, you know, putting all your eggs in one basket is never a good idea.
Absolutely not.
Borrowing to invest is never a good idea.
But a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, those lessons are lessons that need to be taught through really meaningful financial education for people. And as I say, right now that there is a vacuum of education to support, you know, the access to the financial inclusion, access to financial products. And that's what I'm really passionate about kind of delivering to those young people. And I believe that one of the best places to be able to speak to them about that is at work. And at work because actually for the vast majority of us, the money you earn through your salary is your single source of income and effectively sets the benchmark for your own financial well-being. So if you understand how to use the money that you're earning at work, then you can make smarter choices about where to put that money to make it work harder for you.
Definitely. And so I suppose for people now watching this, if they do have like some savings, but they want to make that money work better for them, what would your sort of advice be there? Or some maybe key insights that they should look for?
So I guess, you know, this is like one of the biggest questions out there. What should I do? Spend, save, invest? Where should I put my money? I think the thing about what we're trying to do at Wealthbrite is educate people on their options. So we're not in the business of advising people, put your money here or put your money there. So what we want to do is lift you up in your knowledge base so that you can make a decision about your money yourself. But what I would say is that some of the things we talk about is understanding what your financial needs are today and what you might like to have in the future. So, and it all starts with understanding your own personal mindset and your approach to money. So one of the first things that we sort of try and educate people on is understanding the psychology of money. You'll be familiar with this as a psychologist, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs is where the framework that I use for kind of explaining how we relate to money. And Maslow's hierarchy is basically a framework that's a pyramid that says we have basic needs around sort of physiology and security, which is essentially housing, food and water. We then move up the level to saying, okay, well now I'm in addressing my social needs, you know, being around other people, connecting and being social animals that we are. And then the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, which in sort of everyday terms I call living your best life. When we talk about how money operates and how we're using our money and what we should be doing with our money, you know, the framework I like to talk about is to say, well, where are you on that hierarchy of needs? And for a lot of people, especially right now, right, we're seeing a shift happening in where people sit on that hierarchy. There used to be a lot of people for whom, you know, they had the basic needs covered and they were out there enjoying some of the like social or living your best life needs. Right? They were able to go and splash some money on some holidays. Maybe they've got that gym membership. Maybe it's just going out for a meal with your friend every now and again, or going to the cinema. And what's happened with this cost of living crisis is they're now being forced to prioritize basic needs only, and they don't have any leftover cash. And for others, unfortunately, and actually this is a larger proportion of the British population than you might realize, actually they were already only focused on basic needs. And what we're seeing is now the difficult decision they're having to make, choosing between the needs that they can afford. So when I talk to people about what should I do with that money if I have it, my first question is, where are you in addressing the needs? Do you know, do you fully understand what's coming into your account and going out of your account? Have you done a personal audit of your finances? Have you built a budget? If you haven't done that, then that's the first place to start, because only then can you assess whether or not you've met those basic needs and therefore truly understood whether or not you have money extra to be able to make choices about where to put it afterwards.
And it's a good point, and I just wanted to maybe direct people to your site, because actually there's some people that don't really know how to do a budget. and understand their finances. But I think when I went on your website the other day, there was like a free downloadable workbook. Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank God I'm not making it up.
No, absolutely. So there's a couple of things there for people who might be interested. One is we've got a sort of money personality quiz, which is really trying to get you to answer a sort of a few questions that will make you think about how you're currently behaving with money. And we kind of assign a sort of an animal personality to that.
I love that.
You know, are you the ostrich with your head in the sand, you know, ignoring what's going on? Or maybe you're the kangaroo because you're bouncing up and down, and some months are good, some months are bad, right?
Yeah.
So you can take the quiz and find out a bit more about that. And it's really to start to unlock the thinking about who am I, how do I behave and relate to money. And then, yes, as you say, there is a budget workbook that you can download and then basically use that. It's sort of pre-populated with examples of what are things that you spend on regularly. And we've included in there some prompts for things that people sometimes forget to include in the budget. So those one-off irregular expenditure items. So that might be renewing your home insurance, or if you have a car, getting the MOT done.
Oh, the boring stuff. It makes a difference.
It does. But you can also include in there some of the fun stuff, right? If actually you say to yourself, look, I don't want to scrimp on, my monthly night out with my mates, then put that into your budget. Make it part of your plan for something that you want to commit your expenses to, and make that part of your sort of your financial habits, right? Because this is all about building financial habits and practices that are going to enable you to better understand how your money is working today. And then you can start to build on that framework and say, okay, well, now I know what's happening today. What have I got in and out? How is it being managed?
And it's just so funny. And picking up on that word, the habit, I talk to people daily about their habits, right? And it's funny that money is at the top of the list of a worry, but it's the last thing that they manage.
100%. So this is something I say when I go and talk to sort of businesses and workshops with people, and I ask them, how many hours a week are you working to earn your money? This could be something between like 40 to 60, depending on the kind of job you're doing averagely. How much of that week do you dedicate to looking after your money? For the vast majority of people, we have a very passive relationship with our money. It's almost like the environment in which we earn our money is so demanding an awful lot of the time on our energies. It's almost like we've sort of stopped giving the energy to, okay, well, now we've earned it. What are we doing with it? But it's so important. It's so important.
What are, and I think really just for the audience, what are the commonalities that you find in sort of some of the questions that you get asked by people that you work with?
Yeah, great question. I think, one of the questions that comes up time and time again is the one about, I don't understand if I'm paying the right amount of tax. It's actually a very common question. And, I come from a tax background, so that was where I worked for a lot of years. And, my job was, it provided me with the skills to understand really complex financial structures for businesses. And it's fascinating because I was given the skills and learning to develop a really good understanding to advise businesses on what they're doing with their money and how their taxes work. But, how does that relate into your personal circumstances? So people are just really genuinely clueless a lot of the time about how it works.
100%.
So that's something that comes up a lot. And it tends to come up because people have seen, probably online, or maybe they've followed, maybe they've seen an article in the press that says, are you due a tax refund? So this is one of the most common things that comes up in the context of taxes. It's like, am I on the right tax code? Am I due a tax refund? Have I paid the right amount of tax? How do I know if I've paid the right amount of tax? And again, this is usually prompted because of an experience that's happened to people. So they've either had something where HMRC has written to them to tell them they've owed some tax.
I've had that. Horrible. Don't do it. It's awful.
And so it's triggered in them this sort of knock-on effect of questions that says, well, hang on a second, I have no idea. I wasn't even thinking about tax. Because my employer manages paying taxes for me. So I had just assumed it was being done right. And of course, the reality is that your employer is there to facilitate payment, but they are not responsible for getting it right. It's your own personal tax.
Yeah.
So you have to know what your tax code is, what it means, and what it does in terms of making sure you're paying the right amount of tax. So that's one question that's come up a lot, and again, tends to come up because of a particular experience people have gone through. I think the other questions that you kind of really do hear a lot about are just relating to sort of life events. So people getting to a stage in life where they have a goal in mind that's then triggering questions. So a lot of people, that's going to be saving for a home. Yeah. Actually, I actually hear the trigger often coming after the event has taken place. So I was chatting to a guy recently who told me, I've recently bought a house, and I still don't really fully understand how my mortgage works. I don't really know if, I'm in a fixed rate mortgage right now, so I know that that's quite good for me if interests are going up at the minute, but I don't really know when that comes to an end what I should do next. And that's a cause of concern, because obviously, like, the amount of debt you're taking on to afford a house is huge. It becomes like the single largest debt that most people have, and conversely, the single largest asset most people have is the value of their home. So that's something that comes up a lot. So really educating people about, like, how what is a mortgage and how does it work? How to save for a home. Something not a lot of people know, and saving for a deposit on a home is an exercise that can take people years to reach, and for a lot of people it doesn't ever materialize. There are programs out there like the Lifetime Individual Savings Account, or LISA. This is a government-sanctioned savings account that gives you 25% return on your investment every year, and is geared to help you save for a home.
I've never heard of that.
So, there are programs like that which so many people just simply don't know exist. The fact that you can put £4,000 every year into this account, and the government will give you an extra bonus of £1,000 every year. And if you think about it, for some people, if you're trying to save £10,000-20,000, getting an extra £1,000 every year to help you get to that deposit,
that's massive.
It's huge.
How do we not know about this?
And
how do we not know?
Right. And like, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of resource out there. So if you Google this stuff and you read about it, you can read about it. There's a lot of information on the government website.
I mean, I know, but that just bores the crap out of me sometimes, I'll be honest, Carla.
Well, this is what I was trying to get to and say it sort of nicely. The problem with a lot of the resources that are out there at the moment, they're inaccessible to a lot of people. The language that is used in finance can be quite a barrier in and of itself. So what we're trying to do at Wealthbrite is move away from heavy, dense, written documents. This is about engaging with people, using real life examples, having people talk about their personal situations, their personal experiences, and then open their eyes up to some of what's out there and teach them about the pros and cons of using your money in this way, And that's the story, right? It's got to be the stories behind the statistics that will change behaviors and create positive habits.
Definitely.
Because I really do believe that, reading about something is one thing, but actually seeing something in real life, being able to talk to somebody else about what they've done or they experienced, that to me just seems to radically change people's mindsets when it comes to not just understanding something, because education for the sake of education is one thing. What we're trying to do at Wealthbrite isn't just to provide you with a baseline level of education. That is certainly one aspect. But what we really want to do is help you change behaviors. We want to help you act. And to get that switch flipped, we need to show you real people, real stories that are going to really fire you up to actually go away and make a change in your own life. And that's what we're working towards.
I love that. And for those that haven't yet, go and visit wealthbrite.co.uk.
Right.
It's simple. It's laid out in a way that you completely understand it. And that's what I loved when I went onto your website the other day. I was like, this is just so easy to navigate through as well. So go and take a look. Is there anything else in terms of options or advice that you would like to leave people with today?
I guess the one thing I would tell people is that, and this is probably a reflection point that came out of some feedback I had from other people recently who did some of our workshops. It's that you're not alone if you're worried about money, right?
100%.
I think we started off at the beginning of this conversation talking about the link between money and mental health. I think, the reality of it is we're hearing a lot in the press at the minute about cost of living, the pressures on people's finances. And actually, I find it myself, right? When I read those stories and I'm constantly consuming that, it can feel heavy.
Yeah.
It can feel very negative and scary. And what I guess I would encourage people to say is that actually it's important to recognize that you aren't alone. It's important to recognize the value of talking to people about money.
Yeah.
And that you can make a change, that you're not defined by whatever past experiences you might have with money. I can certainly think of my own life and think, oh gosh, I've made some mistakes with money. But that doesn't define who you are and who you can be with your money. So, this is a point of reflection that says you can learn, you can become more confident, you can relieve that stress. But it starts by taking action to learn about what's out there and to put yourself into what I acknowledge is a vulnerable position.
Yeah.
It's being prepared to say, I don't necessarily have all the answers. And that to have a curious mindset of saying, well, what can I do to change that? And for businesses, I guess the message I would leave them is that this is too important a topic to ignore.
Yeah.
This is affecting your people every day. And, there's simple steps they can take. Starts with having a conversation, empowering and probably coaching your people to be able to have a conversation about money at work. And then investing in this as a life skill that actually makes your workforce better, not just for them in their lives, but for you and your business.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this interview. And I hope you have too. This is The Proud Talk. I'm Tracy Hill. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like and share.